Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. Okay, I just need to take my name off there. Sometimes I don't know why it keeps popping up. Think you know who I am, or if you don't know who I am, my name is Vicky Marie. I'm based in Spain, in Europe. I talk about true crime or mysterious cases. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the reason I'm going to talk about this case about Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy. This is more or less a year since this awful tragedy happened. And I don't know about you, but it still doesn't sit right with me what happened. I don't know. I feel there's more to it. I don't think we're ever going to find out the whole story of what happened to this famous actor, double Oscar winner, and his wife Betsy, a pianist, famous in her own right as an artiste. And it was a very, very sad story. It happened at their home in Arizona in the United States. The alarm was raised, and it turned out that both Gene Hackman, as say, a very famous actor in his day, but by now sort of quite elderly in his 90s, and his younger wife, 66, which of course is young these days, both deceased in their home. And not only them, but one of their dogs. So they had three German Shepherds or a Malinois and, German Shepherd type breed dogs. Two of which, fortunately, were free and roaming around the property. But one of them, unfortunately, had been for some surgery and was in a cage. And because it seems like Betsy, from what they say, died first. And then Gene Hackman, he was found in another room. We don't know all the ins and outs of everything, though we have seen the video, the body cam video from the police, but, obviously redacted. Seems like Betsy was like the caregiver to Gene Hackman. He had Alzheimer's, apparently, and he had a pacemaker, and he had various sort of health issues, typical of an elderly man. Could he not let the dog out of the cage? Was he too far gone with his Alzheimer's? Seems like Betsy collapsed, maybe, or did she? I still have my, people with Alzheimer's, they're quite aggressive, and I just wonder, did something happen there? I don't know. That's not what was announced. It's just something that sticks in my head, and maybe, it just not a thing that was released finally. I think we've learned over covering true crime, especially with high profile people, we don't always get to know the full story, do we, of what happened. And this is a very, very sad case. If Betsy succumbed apparently to a virus that apparently is communicated through rats, one thing that was interesting in this case is, for the multimillionaires, that they were, or at least Gene was, the house was, pretty much disgusting. It seemed like it got too much for Betsy, but why not employ a cleaner or a caretaker for Gene? People trying to do things all on their own because of pride. Sometimes people do try and do that. I understand that, and I understand why they do it. They want to be independent. But I think that's what led to this tragedy, really, trying to be independent. That poor dog was in a cage because probably kept away from the other dogs because it had surgery. But nobody let it out. No, when Nancy succumbed to the virus, And then Gene either couldn't get up the stairs to let the dog out or didn't realise what happened because of his Alzheimer's. And it looked like he eventually just collapsed on the floor himself. It's thought that, as I say, she died first. And then it seems like Gene couldn't look after himself, but couldn't phone for help. I do feel that this is an unexplained mystery all the same. Even though we've been given an explanation, I'm not sure. Anyway, we're going to go through it. We're going to look at an article because there's been a few articles about it because it's a year on. Can you believe it's been a year? I remember covering this case. I remember us talking about it. Initially, it was, well, what was it? An intruder? Was Betsy attacked? Then what happened to Gene then, and what happened to the dogs? And so we're going to look at an article from the Daily Mirror which just talks about it, and we're going to find out what happened to the surviving dogs, because a lot of us were interested. We were always interested in the dogs. These poor dogs will have suffered trauma. Not only seeing, Gene and Betsy die, but also, of course, they were probably, that would have been upsetting that poor dog in the cage. It just doesn't even bear thinking about, does it? But anyway, so we're going to look at the article and, have a chat about it. You're going to tell me, hopefully, in the chat So where Gene Hackman's dogs are now, a year on from watching their owners die in squalor. It's a shame, isn't it? So 1 year ago, Hollywood legend Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, were found dead at their home, leaving their 2 surviving dogs to roam the mansion. Anyway, there's a nice picture of them with their dogs. They remind me of our German Shepherd. They're beautiful dogs. They're very loyal dogs. So as the bodies of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa lay in their mansion, their surviving dogs were left to fend for themselves. Actor Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy, died in tragic circumstances, leaving their beloved pet dogs in a devastating rat-infested. Their bodies were discovered, weren't they, after a welfare check conducted by neighbourhood security on February the 26th, 2025, and it found classical pianist Betsy lifeless on the bathroom floor beside a space heater. 2-time Oscar winner Gene was discovered deceased in a room adjacent to his kitchen. It was later confirmed that Betsy had succumbed to hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, which is an uncommon illness transmitted by rats. Gene died around a week later. I mean, it's horrible to think of Gene wandering around, isn't it? Wandering around that property. Wandering around the wherever he was, because he was on a different floor to where Betsy was. So it's horrible to think of him wandering around and not really understanding maybe that Betsy was dead. So she'd succumbed to hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, and he died around a week later from heart disease with his advanced Alzheimer's disease, also understood to be a contributing factor. Very sad. The whole situation is very sad. And of course, one of their dogs was dead. So tragically, it's believed that in spite of serious cognitive decline, Gene may not have realized, in his state of cognitive decline, he may not have realized his devoted wife of 34 years was lying dead in the bathroom as he spent his final days alone. And a search of their Santa Fe mansion, which has been described as a mess, also led to the sad discovery of the body of one of the couple's 3 dogs, 12-year-old Zinner. That 12 is quite old for a German Shepherd, isn't it? Anyway, the much-loved pet, who had reportedly been recovering from surgery, had likely died from severe dehydration or starvation. However, there are two other dogs managed to survive this horror ordeal, with one even assisting with the recovery of his master's body. So this is Betsy in happier times with two of those dogs. They obviously adored their dogs. Um, but anyway, it's believed that the ordeal would have been very traumatic for the beloved pets, which it would, of course. So the two surviving dogs, German Shepherd Bear and Akita Shepherd mix Nikita, were discovered roaming the remote 12-acre estate, fending for themselves. Heartbreaking body cam footage shows 7-year-old Bear staring anxiously at Betsy in an 11-minute video. Sorry, I'm getting upset because it'd be just like, why is my mummy not waking up? In an 11-minute video taken at the New Mexico property, one of the investigators can be heard saying, "Poor guy, he's sad," in sympathetic reference to the forlorn pooch. In the clip, the house appears cluttered and squalid. While it didn't take long to locate Betsy, it took first responders at the scene several minutes to find Gene. Santa Fe Fire Chief Brian Moyer recounted how one of the loyal animals had begun barking at them and seemed to be leading them to the mudroom where Gene was. Chief Moyer reflected it was a heartfelt story, a tragic case. A man's best friend is a dog. Sorry, I'm getting upset. And the dog was trying one last time to let them know his owner was down and we needed to get over there to help. Dear me. Speaking previously with the Mirror, certificated clinical animal behaviourist Rosie Bescobie said of the dogs, it would have been really stressful for them. It would have been very traumatic for the dogs. Not only because it's the fact they're witnessing their owners lifeless and non-responsive, but also I presume they will have been hungry, they will have been thirsty, they will not have had their normal routine. Now, I believe there was water on the property, like a lake or something like that. Maybe not a lake, maybe that's a bit dramatic. Maybe a pond or so. The dogs that were free, the two dogs that were free, they were able to get water. And of course, that's how they've survived because you can survive without food for quite a long time, but you can't survive without water. And particularly, I know having a German Shepherd, they drink a lot of water in normal situation, in the winter now in the house. Princess Tia, she's always drinking water. We go through 2 bowls a day of water for her. And it's not even the summer, so God knows how these poor babies got on. But yeah, you can see the house is a mess. And apparently it was rodent infested. So the Santa Fe mansion, once lauded for its stylish interiors, was found to be in a state of disarray. Now, probably what's happened is obviously as Gene's health has deteriorated and his mental health with Alzheimer's, etc., Betsy's become the carer. And although she was younger than him, she's still 66 years old. That's a massive house to upkeep, isn't it? To keep on top of. I expect she couldn't keep on top of it. That's how it would strike me. My house is nowhere near as big as that, but it takes some cleaning and organising and then she was probably couldn't leave Gene alone for very long. So it's unclear how long it would have taken for Bear and Nikita to realise that something was horribly wrong. And according to Rosie, this may vary between dogs. In addition, Rosie, who works primarily with dogs, believes that Bear and Nikita would have been very, very confused, as life as they knew it became unpredictable from their point of view. Now, dogs love routine, don't they? They love it. They do the same things every day. He's so sweet. My dog, from the minute you wake up, I can tell you exactly what they're going to do. When we first went, as I'm sort of coming round, because they don't take that long to come round. Particularly little Rocky. God, he's like goes from asleep to full on speed in the space of about 3 seconds. And then the first thing he does, I'll get up, I'll go to the loo. When I go to the loo, he'll go and get one of his toys, and he comes back and jumps on the bed. And I'm trying to make the bed, which doesn't take much making because it's only a duvet and that, but he won't let you. He's lying on the bed with his toy, chewing it, and with his legs splayed out behind him, deliberately trying to stop you make the bed. Then he might roll over and start rolling around on the bed. And then he starts having a game with Riley. And it's every morning, it's exactly the same. And then when I finally manage to make the bed, sometimes I have to shut them out of the room and we go downstairs, and then he goes straight to where the treats are in the kitchen, sits down because he knows he gets a treat when he wakes up in the morning. So he literally goes into the kitchen, to the other end of the kitchen, where the treats are up on the table, sits down and stares at me like this. It's like, right, treat time now. Then I give them both a treat. Then I put their food down. But so once he's eaten his treat, then he's sat by the bowl waiting for his food. It's just like his routine. He knows what the routine is. Then it's I can't say it out loud because they're here, WALK. All this routine. The dogs love their routine. And when they're out of their routine, they're like, oh God, what's going on? Anyway, so in April 2025, it was reported, and I missed this, I didn't see it, both Bear and Nikita had finally been rehomed to new loving families and were adjusting to life apart in different households. So sadly, they were split up into two different households. Gene and Betsy's family, they didn't want the dogs, you know, which is fair enough. I suppose you don't know what their circumstances are. But they were just like, well, take the dogs to a home. Anyway, they've been homed. So that's the good news because they're quite young dogs, I think. So Santa Fe Tales doggy daycare owner Joey Padilla, who had been caring for the pair since the tragedy, confirmed in an interview at the time that he had just returned from personally delivering one of the dogs out of state while the other had found a home locally. Sorry. Oh my God. Oh, I know, I'm sure they're fine, but, just they've been through so much together to be split up like that. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Do you know what? Just dogs, they just take hold of you, don't they? She only noting that they're no longer together. Yeah, you can't say where they are. It's not fair on the new owners. Oh, look at this dog. Oh, so this dog was sitting next to Nancy. Look at his face. Just, protecting her body. That's what they do. Gosh. I didn't think this was going to get me upset, but I should have known better as far as it was for dogs. So anyway, in a later statement, he explained that these placements had been approved by the couple's estate attorney and revealed with great joy and with the consent of the estate attorney, my team and I at Santa Fe Tales have successfully found new homes for Bear and Nikita. We made every effort to ensure they were placed in safe, caring environments, and both are already beginning to settle in. And expressing gratitude for the outpouring of support the dogs had received, Padilla continued, we're thankful for the well wishes during their transition. He added, our hope is that people continue to respect their privacy so they can continue to heal. So that was last year. So I'm hoping, by now these dogs have been with their new families for a year. I hope they've settled in okay. I hope, they're happy anyway. So while Gene had forged a career in the bright lights of Hollywood, both he and Betsy lived a more reclusive life in their later years. They didn't want to be bothered, as per their neighbours. That'll be because of Gene's decline in mental, Alzheimer's, etc. Others living within the same secluded gated community reportedly rarely caught a glimpse of the famous couple, with one neighbour telling the New York Times, "They have a gate and we have a gate, and we've just never seen each other." Another local chimed in, "He wanted to be quiet, he didn't want to be bothered, and I don't blame him." So here they are in happier times, out and about, and Gene was obviously a lot younger. I noticed that as he got older, he lost an awful lot of weight, didn't he? And there's Betsy. I don't know how old Gene was here. Looks maybe he was in his 60s there, which would mean that Betsy was only in her 40s. So apparently they preferred to live a private life. Now, it's all very well living a private life, and I understand that completely. But, sometimes you just need some things in place, like, we've talked about it, haven't we? Just maybe if Betsy would have had something in place, that if, she didn't, people didn't hear from her, they should say, because the welfare check, they've been deceased there quite a long time. They were mummified, their bodies, and of course the other dog had died. So maybe if a welfare check would have been made earlier, luckily the other two dogs survived, but maybe that other dog could have survived. Anyway, in 1990, Gene welcomed Architectural Digest into his home, offering fans a peek inside the property. It's a very old-fashioned property, I think. So obviously, when they had it made, reminds me a little bit of the Rayners, Rob Rayner and his wife Michelle, who, of course, we've been covering that case, but it's gone quiet at the moment. Nick Rayner, their son, allegedly murdered them. They're very sort of old-fashioned. The thing is, they will have been the latest thing in their day. But, as you get older, you sort of, you buy a property and it's the latest, most modern thing when you buy it. But 20 years later or 40 years later, it's not so modern anymore, is it? Their property reminded me a lot of the Rayners' property. Anyway, he said, "We bought a few things in Santa Fe. Other things came from auctions in New York, an antique shop in Germany that Betsy and I found, and from Los Angeles." Yeah, because when you're younger, you accumulate things, don't you? And then as you get older, well, I certainly am just trying to get rid of things. I've been, well, part of it is to do with the trying to raise the money for the new computer that I need. But it's just selling bits and anything. If I haven't used it for a year, it's going up for sale because you just accumulate things that are not necessary. So I'm much more minimalist now. It's a nice combination of soft southwestern pieces and hard-edged antiques, he shared at the time. Thing is, things are only things. You can't take them with you. You need your basic things. You need a sofa, a telly maybe. You need your basic things, but how many things do you have in your house that you just don't need? Clothes the same. If you haven't worn them in a year, they should go to charity or be sold or thrown out or whatever you're going to do with them. And that's how I'm feeling about things now, because the things in my house, they're old, as well. But sometimes, like a lot of the things that I've sold really quickly on Marketplace, because they're things that other people maybe would use. If I've not used it for a year, I don't need it. But it might be something that somebody else needs or is going to use. So, I actually quite enjoy throwing things out, to be honest. Thing is, you enter this world with nothing, you'll be leaving with nothing. So, may as well get rid of it now. And if you can make a little bit of money out of it, good. So reports suggest that the ranch-style house, now on the market for $6.25 million, had been in a mess before the couple's heartbreaking deaths. The inside of the house was shocking, a source revealed to Mail Online. They didn't have a housekeeper or a maid, so it had beautiful things, furniture and paintings, but there was dog poop on the floor. A lot of people live like that, don't they? And I have to keep on top of my house all the time because, I have somebody else living here who doesn't try and keep on top of anything. But the inside of the house was bad. Nothing had been dusted. There was nothing in the fridge. So it's ironic, isn't it? All that money that they had, why didn't they have a cleaner at least once a week or something? Or somebody why did Betsy not employ someone to help her with Gene so she could have some free time? Get rid of the rats, all that sort of thing. They needed pest control. So Gene and Betsy had no children together, but the actor was father to son Christopher Allen, 65. So he's nearly the same age as Betsy. Daughters Leslie Ann, 58, and Elizabeth Jean, 62, from a previous relationship. Following their deaths, Leslie paid tribute to Betsy for keeping him alive and said they had a wonderful marriage. She said they had a wonderful marriage, and I give credit to his wife Betsy for keeping him alive. She took very, very good care of him and was always looking out for his health. So I'm appreciative to her for that, and I'm very saddened by her passing. So it seems like Betsy just devoted her life because she had no children. So she's devoted her life to Gene, but she was the one who died first. Because unfortunately, this is what we talked about at the time. This is a similar thing that happened to my parents. My father, he was looking after my mum when she had Alzheimer's, but I think it killed him because he just had a massive heart attack in his sleep. It's when you're looking after someone who's ill, and it's good that people do it, and it was as far as he was concerned, that was his wife. It was till death us do part. Look, I'm getting upset again now. He looked after my mum for as long as he could, but it's almost killed him, if that makes sense. So you've always, this is what when I'm on sometimes, and I say at the end, look after yourself first. You do have to look after yourself first. It's not selfish. I'm the world's worst for not looking after myself first. I have to remind myself you have to, because you have to think what would happen to the people you look after, even if it's your children, even if it's your adult children, people who depend on you for whatever reason. What would happen to them if someone selfish? It's not selfish to put yourself first. It's just if you don't put yourself first, you can't help anybody else. I feel like this is what happened with Betsy. I think Betsy probably put herself last, and she certainly put the house. I think they had a gardener, but there should have been somebody helping her out in the house, because, or if that house was too big for her to cope with alone, and she didn't want to move because it's home, that you can sort of live. If you've got a great big house like that, they could just live in one little part of it, couldn't they? And sort of seal off the other parts, get them cleaned, get them, closed off, and just live in a small part of the house that's easier to manage. So that's the other thing. When you're young, maybe when you're in your 30s, your 40s, I think, oh, I'd love a great big house, or especially when you've got kids and that, you need a big house with lots of bedrooms. But there does come a time when you need to downsize. Not only need to, but like personally, I'd love to downsize because I look at a big house now and I just think, oh God, you've got to clean that. If it's got stairs, oh God, you've got to clean those stairs. I'm not a lover of cleaning, but I don't like living in dirt either. So, I do clean, and I keep my house clean. I wouldn't say it's perfect. I'm not housewife of the year. It's quite often untidy, but it's rarely. But you have to keep on top of it. My house isn't anything like as big as theirs, but it's on different floors and it's got stairs. I always seem to be cleaning stairs. And obviously, I've got three dogs. So when you've got three dogs, if you don't keep them outside, if you let them come into the house, you have to keep. My dogs don't poo in the house, but this hairs, dog hairs. I've got a German Shepherd. German Shepherds, twice a year, they shed their whole fur. So they don't shed a lot of fur in between, to be fair. They don't shed lots of hair in between those 2 times a year. But those 2 times a year, when they completely lose their whole fur and grow a completely new coat, oh my God, it's constant. So, it's a lot of work. Dogs are a lot of work. Big houses are a lot of work. And now that house is up for sale. It just seems sad to me the way that it all ended up for them. Now, Gene, he had a long life. I'm presuming he had a good life. He won Oscars. He was an actor. He did what he wanted to do with his life. And hopefully the same for Betsy. But she was so much younger when she died. 66 in this day and age is not that old, is it? And they just had so much going for them. It just seems sad to end this way, in this tragic way, doesn't it? Anyway, I just wanted to talk about them. I want to say a prayer for them. I hope they're together, in the next world. Uh, it's awful, isn't it? But at least they are together, aren't they? I suppose, one way or another, with their dog as well, with one of their dogs that went with them. And that's all we can hope for. So I didn't intend this to be a video there where I would be crying. But yeah, it's sad. So this is a year ago, more or less to the date, that this tragedy was found of Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy and one of their little dogs, well, their big dogs. One of their dogs passed from this world in what I think could have been avoidable. I think that's the other thing that upsets me about this case. I think maybe if Betsy would have asked for more help, and maybe she, at the end of the day, maybe it all ended up as they would have wanted it. They lived their life as they wanted it. They didn't want people in the house. But in the end, of course, everyone came in the house. They probably would have been mortified at the body cam videos going out and their house reveal like that. So they could have done it a different way. But anyway, we all have to live our lives the way we want to, don't we? They live their life the way they wanted to. So anyway, think about clearing your clutter. Have you got things, seriously, and especially in this day and age when money's tight and stuff, if you've got things, just have a look around your house. Do you need those things? Are there things around your house that you've never used for a year? Sell them. Donate it to charity if you don't need the money, or if you need, or go on holiday, or do something useful with them, because somebody maybe, because the other thing, it's a way of donating. So even if you sell it to someone, so if you've got something that like is worth €100, maybe I'm thinking euros because I'm in Spain, and you sell it to someone for €10, then that's like a way of giving, you're giving them something as well. So I was thinking about that, and I thought, no, it's a positive thing, really. Sometimes I leave things out by the bins because the guys that we call the skip rats come driving round and they pick up anything. And I think, good, let them make some euros out of it, and they take it away. It's recycling at its purest form. They take it off, they sell it at the market, or they take it to the metal dealers. Could be something that you think, oh God, that's not going to be worth anything, but if it's made of metal or wood, they'll get some money for it. So yeah, these are good ways of recycling things. The other thing that I try really hard not to do now is buy new things. You need your basics, as I say, but sometimes we live in a throwaway society, don't we, where, you know, you sort of don't need to always change things. And we're supposed to be conscious of saving the planet, aren't we? So, anyway, sorry, I'm waffling. Okay, I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you. And God bless Gene and Betsy and their dog Zinner. Bye.